The new GCSEs due in school for September 2006 will involve us in running debate because of the big focus on issues. So we're interested to hear how you think it would fit with your school, the whole issue of handling sensitive issues.
I'd like to see some chemistry-based topics and perhaps some physics-based topics. I have used debates in the past, but I use them very, very rarely, partly because when the students prepare them, you find that those who've prepared the argument for are well versed in a fairly narrow, have used information fairly narrowly, and then those who are opposed to the proposition, they've researched that particular area, but they've ignored the contrary argument, and so when it comes to the exam, they've actually only got half the information.
Somebody referred to scientists as not being able to debate, and there's a stereotype there. And if one of the things that we're doing is about helping scientists to communicate a bit better, then getting into the debating area is a way that we need to do it. And going back to the point about facts, it's helping students and ourselves understand the difference between the knowledge you need, the inferences you draw from that, and then the opinions that you express on top of that. All are part of a debate, but it's getting that structure together, which is important if we're to take it forward in terms of science in particular. But I think it's also for any other subject as well.
Yeah, I think there's obviously a role for debate, and there's also obviously a role for deliberation. It's very much about social skills as well as and communication skills. And at least with that, you then get some kind of breadth and some understanding of the whole topic. And I think then being able to delve into it for one particular arguing for or against is also really good experience to do.
It also allows the students to share opinions of things that they have and the things that they feel really strongly about without, in some ways, upsetting people, because when you've got a debate like that which is very structured and there are opinions and there are ideas that they're actually set down for them, they feel a lot more comfortable in being able to share their ideas because, they know that other people will have that opinion. They know that something is written down. It's okay to express that view. It makes some of the more sensitive issues a little bit more comfortable to broach. They want to talk about these things, but it's being able to do so and being given the form back to be able to do that as well.
Within a lot of areas, there is still debate about the actual science, and there's a danger that all we do is debate the moral ethical issues, which are right, but it's actually there's an opportunity to use this process to get students to express and start to argue their own explanations for particular science concepts or phenomena that they see and that they can experience.
An awful lot of science students are used to being told something, not having to find out, this happens if you do this. Admittedly, the year later we change it, but they're used to that, whereas an awful lot of English students are used to finding things out by discussion or by reading, and I don't think science is very good at finding things out by reading.
No, it's about using debating as a process of learning the science.
I think it's also good for especially A-level students to be able to understand that these are quite emotional issues as well, because very often, when they're talking, for example, about answering a question in an exam, it has got to be a very unemotional thing. It's got to be very factual, and opportunities like this are good for them to be able to say, okay, I have a feeling about this. There is emotion attached to this, and it's okay for me to feel strongly that I wouldn't like this to happen, or I couldn't cope with this, or this actually tugs at me a bit here because I am feeling very emotional about it. They don't necessarily always get the opportunity to be emotional about emotional topics, and that way sometimes it's very difficult to teach, because as a teacher you stand there and you do feel emotional talking to them about cancer and about research like this, and it's okay for them to express that too.
Have you got any other ideas about how we can handle sensitive issues well, or whether this is the best forum for that?
Sometimes you work with the students that you've got, and we have a student who has a sister with cystic fibrosis, so they came and gave us a big discussion on it, a big talk about it, and explained in a lot of detail. I mean, I didn't know a lot about it, and I was quite emotional by the time we'd finished, and I think it really gave the children, but that was just one side, one viewpoint, but it was fantastic. That was with our year 11s.
Yeah. I also think as well, these things are really useful to talk about. I mean, one of our A-level topics is obviously, is the genetics. And you can't get away from talking about things like cancer genetics and all the genetic disorders. And I think when you can actually stand in front of the class and say, look, this is what my experience is, this is real life, this is what's happened to me, they do feel a lot more comfortable about then joining in. It's okay to have the emotions that go with it. And I think it allows them the opportunity to ask questions and to explore areas that they wouldn't necessarily do because they're still sort of taboo subjects, that cancer is something that isn't discussed. But they then spend an hour talking about the ins and outs and the whys and wherefores of something like cancer because they wouldn't get a chance to do that otherwise. And they leave the room feeling better because they've been able to express some emotion about it.
If you intend to cover emotional issues, though, in the curriculum, you can't actually arrive and say, right, today we are going to. The nice thing about having a debate is that you can actually plan it, and pupils will be prepared for the likely areas that they're going to be covering, and so it's not suddenly a shock that they're going to be talking about cancer today or Down syndrome.
And they can be emotionally prepared for it as well.
Yeah,
they can actually
yeah.
sort of get their head around the topic that you're talking about, which helps as well.